Narrative journalism is using a descriptive voice to actually tell a story in a more meaningful way. It is a way for us to actually create characters, to create a setting, to create a scene, to create a natural arc of a story. It also offers us an opportunity to tell a story which could be very complex, and simplifying it for people, which makes it digestible for them and makes it enjoyable for them to actually consume. Having them invest in a story, having something dramatic happen in that story, or a number of dramatic events happen in that story, and bringing it to a conclusion. The conclusion doesn't have to be logical, it doesn't have to be dramatic. So therefore there's no hard and fast rule, you know. You start at point A and we're working our way to Z. No, sometimes Z comes first and then we're going to go to P, and then maybe we'll go to Q, and then maybe we'll go to J. You know, and when you're really good at what you do, then you do this seamlessly so that people don't actually notice it. Because you write doesn't make you a writer. Most of us who work in newspapers are reporters, and some of us aspire to be writers. So it calls for writing more than reporting. But all the elements, basic elements of reporting are incorporated into that. One of the devices I use is to start people off at the scene and say, and then something which stands out for me at the scene. I can paint that scene in 10 words. Doesn't mean that I have to use a long intro again. People will actually read a piece, not so much for the fact really. The facts often actually makes the piece a bit dull. It is all the emotion that you're actually conveying, the scenes that you're describing, the action that is advancing, that actually makes the story gripping, that makes people invest and makes them actually read and read. It's like sitting up in bed, you know. So I'm just going to read a chapter. And if you've ever done that, you know, where you end up, oh God, I'm on the 3rd chapter, but I've got to know what happens next. I mean, if you can do that to anybody, then you've done a stellar job, you know. And so that is what we aspire to. I try to think visually about most things that I write about when I'm trying to write narrative. So sometimes you want the perspective of the character who you trying to have people empathize, sympathize, or understand, or have their point of view. Sometimes it's better to be the observer a little bit further away. So you decide on which camera angle you're using. I think that is the best way to describe it. It's a camera angle that you're using to describe exactly what perspective you're going to use. I mean, for every 3 minutes of good narrative, of good film, you need 60 unique shots. That's a lot of work, and that's a lot of observation. But it can be done, again, in a relatively short time. Every single shot has meaning and has relevance and advances the action which we want to see. There must always be an advancement of the action of the story. And we do exactly the same thing in video, where we're advancing the story continuously. We spend a lot of time observing the subjects who we like to encounter. For the most part, the best subjects are not the people preaching from the pulpits, as the people sitting in the congregation, because it's easier for the most part for people to relate to those people who are the congregants. So we spend time watching them. We'll be there in the morning when they rise, with the sunrise. We will be there when they're brushing their teeth, when they're getting dressed, when they're having their breakfast, when they're sending their kids off to school. We will follow the kids on their way to school. And the more time you spend, the more diverse the material you'll have, the better the material you'll have. In every respect, whenever you choose your point of view, it should be measured, and it should be very thoughtful, and it should be very purposeful and deliberate. Every single word, every sentence, every paragraph must be fighting for the space on the page, because it is finite.